Okay. Michael, go ahead and start us off.
I had something I wanted to say about emunah, okay? And that's when you were talking about the Christians, they say the Messiah gets the credit for anything good and the devil gets credit for anything bad. And where does that leave us? But I feel like that being one who has emunah, I can recognize that I can still own my role with the blessings that he's brought through me and the wickednesses that I perform of my own will. But I can also acknowledge that Elohim may have chosen me to do a job, understanding the scope of both the good and wickedness in my range of ability. And with that knowledge, knowing that knowledge, that I have to be the exact correct person he needs to do whatever job he has set into my hands.
Amen. That's good. Well said.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Well said. And I forgot your name again?
Haley.
Haley.
Shabbat
okay.
Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Haley.
So you brought up addictions, and you said...
You got to put it right up by your mouth.
Oh, sorry.
There you go.
So you brought up addictions, and you said how we should be motivated, or like how people should be motivated to get rid of them. But what if someone did have an addiction and they weren't motivated to like get rid of them? How would they motivate themselves to get rid of said addiction, like to whatever they're addicted to?
All right. So this is the real hard part, okay? Addiction, anything that you want to rid yourself of or add to yourself, you got to want it. Until you want it, you're not going to do it. It can't come from outside. I can motivate you, and then you'll do it for a little while because I motivated you, but if it's not in you, it's not going to happen long term. You're going to fall back. Everybody knows people that you kind of encourage them and you pump them up and they started doing whatever it is or stopped doing whatever it is for a short period of time, and then you weren't around for a while or whatever, and then you went and found out they were right back where they were. Somehow it has to come from in you. The person has to dig deep and find that carrot and that stick. And the carrot is simply, what is your reason? Actually, you know what? In the Level Up class, we're going to cover all that. But what is your reason for doing this thing? Why do you want to fix the problem? And then you got to remind yourself the price you're going to pay if you don't fix it. But it's got to come from in you, okay? I got a lot of people telling me, well, you know, I want to quit smoking. And I've heard that for years and years and years. Well, you really don't want to quit smoking. You like the idea that you should quit smoking. If you wanted to quit, you'd quit. Oh, that's easy for you to say, Rabbi. No, I know lots of people that quit. And they quit, every one of them, at the moment they didn't want to smoke anymore. Not at the moment that they didn't crave it, but the minute they actually stopped wanting to be a smoker. Okay, I know a lot of people want to lose a bunch of weight, but they don't. I watch them eat, I watch them do this stuff. Why? Well, they don't really want it. They know they should. They have an intellectual desire. It has to be deep in here. You have to want it, right? Okay, you have to stop wanting whatever it is that you're doing now and really want this change. I can't do that for you. You can only do that for you. You got to dig deep. All right.
I'm practicing pushing through my vulnerability and coming forward to ask questions as an example to my fellow Kiwis that...
Well, but you did, when you were in New Zealand and we're on Zone 3, you've gotten on the camera.
Yeah, I know, but I'm really seriously nervous. So a question and a comment. My question first is, if you have strong preferences or desires about something, should you be even more careful and aware about, to research and make sure that you have grasped the truth?
Absolutely. That's where it probably helps to have somebody that's an expert that you know in that area and just say, hey, is this appropriate? Does this make sense? And remember, whatever you're doing, it's important that you maintain whatever your understanding would be of balance. Now, I got to understand, I worded it that way on purpose because in what the world might think of as balance, you can't really accomplish anything huge or great. You have to be out of balance to do that. But you have to make sure that you're actually, that's the way they would see it. But the way you see it, as long as you know you're in balance, that you're not losing anything or hurting anything, all right? So in other words, I could be very out of balance as an entrepreneur to go out there and just hustle and get things going and build things, but I gotta be careful I don't lose my wife or my kids in the mix as I'm doing that, right? Now, I may not be giving them the attention somebody else might think they need, but I know if I'm giving the attention they actually need type of thing. I'm just giving an example, okay? What balance looks like. Okay, now balance doesn't mean like even everything all the time, because then you'll never get anything done. You have to kind of obsessively, on some level, get some things done, and what the world might look at as out of balance. But you might want to get some guidance to make sure what is a healthy out of balance. Because remember, what the world thinks is balance and what you might think is a healthy one may not match. Plus, your capacities and your situation may not match somebody else's capacities and situations. Okay?
And also, too, in regards to addiction, would it be safe to say that if you are able to set aside the things that you really like for the important things of the Father, then you're probably not under an addiction, even though you particularly like something?
That's a hard thing to answer, because not all the things that you desire actually are Torah covered. In other words, they're not covered by Torah, that kind of thing. Because a lot of people always like say things to me like, well, you know, I just want to make sure I get the job the Father wants. He probably doesn't care. I just want to get the car he wants. He probably doesn't care. He's just watching you make choices, okay? And so the bigger thing is, you know, if you can figure out, is the things you're desiring, first and foremost, is it a Torah issue? And if it's not, okay, if it's not a Torah issue, is it bringing you or changing you into the person you want to be? Is it helping you become the Freya that's the best Freya you can be, okay? Because there are a lot of things that we like that don't really help that necessarily. And depending on how important something is that you're working on, some of the other things that you like, but they're not important, because you kind of use that word important, those things need to be put to the side and focus on what's important, okay? Look, I watched a million TikToks that talk about this. I've taught this. If you could just tunnel vision, laser focus for 6 months on just the things that are important and getting you to become what you need to become, to have the life you need, you could do that. But can you laser focus, block everything else out on just those important things, okay? Because that should be simple enough. And by the way, just so everybody knows this, the Father actively, in terms of you being active, does not need you to do a whole lot actively all day long. Most of your time is available for you to do other things because he's actively watching how you do those things. Okay, he doesn't need hours of you on your knees praying. He doesn't need hours of you reading the book. Because I've had people say, well, you know, if I got 2 jobs, then that would cut into my hours of reading the book. You don't need to read the book for hours. You don't need to be on your knees for hours. That's neglecting the other things that you need to do. What you need to do is, while you're doing everything, be vertically aware. Then he's getting all the hours, okay? Because then you're always connecting to him while you're doing what you're doing to make sure what you're doing is pleasing to him. So there's lots of time for you to focus on the things that have to do with you becoming whatever ultimately you could become, okay? Which is a Yeshua-like version in a Freya flavor, okay? Well, I mean, that's what we're all like, right? We're all becoming Yeshua-like in your flavor, like your personality, your stuff, but you're trying to become Yeshua-like in the way you think and the way you act in general. But you have that little bit that shows that it's you doing it and not the other person doing it, right? So it's clearly Freya, but it's still in a Yeshua-like way, right?
Yeah, because that's my desire really, is just to be the best me that I can be in Abba's eyes. So yeah.
Now again, if you're not sure what are good priorities and what should actually be put as important, you may get some advice, get some guidance. You know, run it by somebody. Is this a good way for me to prioritize? All right. I would prioritize what's the greatest deficit in your life first. Okay. If it's mental health, focus on that. If it's health in general, focus on that. If it's finances, focus on that. If it's relationships, put the most attention on your greatest deficit, okay? Where you feel like you're behind and it's not going well, all right? Whatever's the most important thing in terms of that area, the thing that's distracting and taking away from your time moving forward, deal with that one first, or at least put most of the effort into that, right? Because you're not going to do well. If finances is your problem, or a problem, but your bigger problem is mental health, you're never going to get the finances done until you fix the mental health to some degree, because it's going to interfere with you getting your finances done, or your physical health done, or your relationships done. Whatever it is, if your relationship is the problem, like the biggest problem, it's going to affect your mental health, your finances, all these other things. Fix the biggest problem, the one that's hurting the situation the most. Put that effort in as best you can, okay? Good.
And my last thing is I was thinking about it as being a little bit like epigenetics, where you can switch genes on and off. So you have genes from the father, but also genes from the adversary. Maybe?
I hate that.
Okay.
No, I hate that for this reason. It sounds like you have no choice. It was born in you. I don't want it to come across that way. I want it to be you making choices only. Both voices are there. They're both from the outside talking to you. It's not from coming, I don't want you thinking, well, I have this gene, you know? I know you weren't painting it that way, but that's what it could sound like. And I don't want that. I want none of this to be coming from something that you didn't have any say in. I want you to be making choices.
Rabbi, I have a question about the account of a woman who committed adultery. When you were saying that there were no witnesses against her, and then Yeshua said, go and do not allow yourself to be used this way. And then I was wondering about what you taught before. Sorry, I can't look at it. It's just too bright.
That's okay.
When you were saying...
I can't see you either.
Yeah, I know, it's great. When you were saying that in that time, the women probably didn't have a choice, with... Like maybe somebody came and said, you need to come with us, and she had to go and stand there, right?
She was scared to death to do anything but stand there.
Yeah.
Okay? I'm sure she was threatened and told.
Yes.
Okay? You need to stand there and don't say a word.
Right. So I guess I got, maybe I need clarification on what Yeshua said to her when she said, go and don't allow yourself to be used this way, because I was wondering, did she really have a choice?
No, I think that she did have a choice. I mean, she could have taken whatever punishment they threatened her with. Just like we have a choice, to work or not work when our boss tells us you got to come in on Saturday. You still have a choice. But he said, if I didn't come in, he's going to fire me. Well, you have a choice to get fired. I mean, that's... So he was trying to make her understand there is a choice. And maybe if you trust that choice, maybe the Father will intervene and it will go well. I know people that have said, look, you just changed my shift to have to work on Saturdays now, and I can't do that. So either go ahead and fire me or give me an accommodation because I'm not afraid of it, right? And then those people, sometimes it worked and they got accommodations, okay? So just understand that.
Very good. I appreciate that clarification. Thank you. Then verse 49, I don't have 48, but... Yeshua, at some point, he says, I value my Father. So when we're not hearing the words of Elohim and we're not following, that means that we're not valuing him. Is that kind of similar to what you say? We do not see him.
That's really well said. I wish I had said that.
But
it's not just not hearing him.
Yeah.
We're going to make sure it's from a Shema sort of point of view.
Okay.
We're not receiving. When we're not receiving what he's saying and not doing what he's saying, we're not valuing him. Everybody's had children, and he said, did you hear me? And the child says, yes. And then they go on and ignore exactly whatever you said. They didn't receive it. They heard you, though. Didn't I tell you not to do that? Yeah. You heard me, right? Yeah. But they didn't receive it. They did it anyway. All right, go ahead.
Right, so that connects with how we're supposed to see him, like with the highest esteem, like with the awe, the reverence, that fear that you talk about. That it's not just somebody, like I think that sometimes because we don't see him, we may look at him as somebody very distant, like, you know what I'm saying? Like it's not like Yeshua walked with us, the Father we know he exists. We see it because we believe, because we see the works, because we see what happens when we walk.
It's very challenging to deal with the invisible.
Yes.
Right? And we have an invisible Elohim that we can't see physically. So yeah, that's hard. But I also want you to understand, this is for everybody in your relationships. If you're not showing that you received and act accordingly, are you actually showing that person that you value them? See, a lot of relationships have challenges. Marriages have challenges because one or both don't feel valued because what they say doesn't actually get received and acted upon. And so now it doesn't mean that everything you say should be received and acted upon. You could be wrong. What I'm just saying is, on a regular enough basis, if this stuff happens, you're not going to feel valued. Okay, if you speak and it doesn't seem to be received and it's not acted upon, everybody agree? Does that make sense? Right? You're not going to feel valued. And I think a lot of times marriages, the struggle is because one or both are not feeling valued.
I actually do think you're a prophet like Jeremiah, Rabbi. I feel
well, that's not
like
for me to say.
Yeah. Well, this is how I see it. Like when I read Jeremiah, he says the same thing over and over. He has a message from Yahweh to give to these people, and he says it over and over, and he says the same. If you read Jeremiah, he'll say something, and then a few chapters later, he'll say the same thing over and over again, and that's what you've been doing in all your teachings. You've been telling us the same thing over and over again. You've been saying it different ways to try to get us to understand it, that we need to transform, into the likeness of Yeshua, into people that Yahweh wants to live with forever. That's your message that you've been saying the whole time, from the very beginning. And you're saying it over and over and over and over and over in every message. And so that's how I see. I told Berkson that a long time ago, probably a couple years ago, that I do see you like that. That, you have your message from Yahweh, and that's what you're doing. We elevate these prophets in the Bible, but I really believe they're just men just like you, just regular people, given anointing.
And again, that's what Paul was describing, right? That's the kind of prophets Paul was describing. He wasn't describing to be like those. Because remember, those guys were not just to the people. They went to the king. They were there and speaking in a way Samuel did, of course, and you see, Nathan, and these prophets were sent to kings, right? Jeremiah was sent to the king. We're sent to the people in a different way. But also, I'll have to get working on, first Rabbi Steve, and we'll write a book, and we'll have second Rabbi Steve. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. All right, go ahead.
Well, your teachings are there, for everybody to see. They're just digital. So, hallelujah.
Well, in that case, I wrote a lot more than any of them.
Yeah. Hallelujah.
All
Hallelujah.
700 teachings that are out there, so yeah.
Okay, and I want to thank you for the reproof about posting. Not that I'm a person that posts, but I appreciate that you talking to us about not being proud and haughty about our beliefs. So even if we're not a person that posts, we still relate to people. We still can have conversations and be proud, and that we need to have compassion for them because they are where we were. Their eyes just haven't been opened, so we should be praying for these people instead of, putting them down and trying to act like we're better because our eyes are just open at this time, and it was Yahweh's timing, not us. Right. So thank you for reminding us about that. And
right. And look, if I don't know, this kind of got triggered there, but if you watch something like any Bible movies, The Chosen, any of those kind of things, you can see when people are carrying themselves in a way that they want to be looked at a certain way. Okay, there's a haughtiness, like in The Chosen. You see that in the ones who are part of the Sanhedrin. How they walked around. A lot of them were very sort of strutty and that kind of thing. I think that if people actually see me, if they didn't know I was the rabbi, they would just see a guy who's just walking around doing whatever he's doing. I don't ever look at anybody like, hey, I'm the rabbi. Why are you doing that? I'll be looking at them like, I don't know why they're doing that. I gave them I'm more confused than taking it like I'm the rabbi, And so that's something we have to take into mind too, is that that's a Pharisee, Sadducee, scribe sort of mindset we don't want to do. We don't want to start walking around thinking, I'm whatever. I just, so you see me and everybody sees me walking around. I clearly have a personality type where you say, well, that guy's in charge of something, okay? Because he's clearly on a mission, he's got a purpose, but it doesn't come across as me looking down on or any of that kind of stuff. At least it shouldn't, because I certainly never feel that way. And so I try to maintain and act like any member of the congregation. I've been in congregations where there was a pastor, and he always was the guy walking around kind of elevated above and never really interacted like normal people with normal people and that kind of thing. And I try not to be that at all. I try to just be, just like everybody else. I just happen to be the guy with this job, Go ahead.
Yeah, and you and Berkson are the most down-to-earth leadership I've ever met. So I really appreciate that. When I first moved here, and we used to go out to eat all the time, when I said I was interested, Berkson said, okay, let's get a group together. Where are we going, So I really appreciated that, and still do. Now that I know you all better, you all still are very down to earth and will do any task, and nothing is below you. So I really appreciate that about you. Hallelujah. And for me, I was a person, when you mentioned about thinking you're right, thinking, you know that you're right. I was one of those people, well, I probably still am, you know. It's revealed, you know, our wrongness is continually revealed. We probably couldn't handle if all of our wrongness was revealed at one time, you know. So, I should say I was a person. I am a person that think I'm right most of the time. And I think that's the strong sense of judgment that we have identified as part of the blue personality, and my emotions driving. And when I really took time and submitted my thoughts to the Heavenly Father, He straightens me out. The relationship of me really getting to know Him authentically, not my idea of who I thought He was. So I want to thank you again for bringing that out. And then what you said about the Father reveals the Son and the Son reveals the Father. I did have that experience in my own life where when I first started walking with Yeshua, I really believed that the Father revealed to me that that was the person, you know, who I should be following. But then later, when I started getting more into Hebrew roots and Messianic and stuff like that, I feel like the Son revealed the Father, that He pointed me back to the Father and, you know, the Torah and all that. And then I just want to tell a quick story, if I may, about an accommodation on Saturday. Story about my last job. Is it okay if I tell a quick story?
Sure, because I know your current job doesn't have a problem with Shabbat.
And you know what? That is something, and okay, this is another story now. So after that job, I said, I want a job with somebody with like Jews or Messianic or somebody who will not give me a hard time about the Sabbath and about the feast. I'm like, the next job I get, that is what I'm going for. And I don't care. I mean, that was like one of my most important things. And lo and behold, this job opened up. So, you know, and it was created. It wasn't even here before, you know. So I just really praise the Father that I'm able to use so many of my talents for the ministry. And it's such a fulfilling, it was even way beyond my expectations, you know. And I've grown so much in this position, and I'm so blessed. So anyway, thank you for allowing this position to open up for me. So
now, since you're not getting grief about the Sabbath and the holy days, I do get to give you grief about taking vacation right before a holy day.
That was a huge mistake. I realized it after I made the plans, and I was worried about stuff at work the whole time. So that won't. You already said it won't happen, and I already know it won't happen.
And I'm sure that I also know that when you got back, you saw the penalty of all the stuff that was waiting for you when you got here.
So much stuff. I'm going to be working pretty much all day tomorrow. Yep. But anyway, a quick story about my accommodation on Saturday is when I first started this job I had previous to this one, I was being lukewarm with my Sabbath keeping. And, you know, I just want to say to everybody on live stream, if you're the most righteous person wherever you live, you're in the wrong place. Because when you don't have anybody challenging you, you just do whatever. You kind of make up the rules. I mean, you could like actually do right, you know, but it's hard to do right when you're the most righteous person you know in your area. So anyway, just saying.
Well, we do unfortunately have a few people probably here in the tent that think they're the most righteous person here. So
it's good to have people to rub up against, you know.
It is.
Yeah. So anyway, I was lukewarm on my Sabbath keeping, and I allowed my boss to rope me into working on the Sabbath one time. And I was very solid on that for many years. And, you know, she was like, oh, it's just a training, you know, it's not really work. And so then I said, okay, and I went. And then, of course, right after training, people started coming up to the window, and she wanted me to work. And I was like, I felt so guilty. I was like, never again. And then I came here for Passover, and I was even more convicted by other people talking about their Sabbath keeping and all that. So then when I got back, she wanted me to come in again on Saturday for training. And I was like, I can't do it. And so she's like, oh, yes, you're coming. And I was like, no, I can't do it. So she was like, you're going to come. It's mandatory. And I was like, I didn't say anything else. I didn't agree. I didn't disagree. So she thought I was coming. So she started telling me about the dress code the day before. And I said, I told you I wasn't coming. And she was so bad, she wanted to fire me. And so I sent her, it popped in my head about that it's our constitutional right. And so I sent her some articles from the EEOC or whatever. That's the equal.
It's the one everybody's familiar with.
Yeah, whatever. Anyway, I sent her articles and it said, it was our constitutional right. Anyway, she let me stay there, and that's the job I had when I moved here. The Yahweh gave me favor for standing my ground, and she did. She still had an attitude. She gave me a hard time, but she let me keep my job, and I was able to move here and work remotely, and before I got this job. So I just want to say that it's rough and it's scary, but if you stand your ground, sometimes they fold and they allow you to do it, and other times you could get fired, but Yahweh is our provider, right? So he's going to provide regardless. So thank you.
Amen. All right, there's more to it than that, though. All right? If you push and kind of force them into keeping you because you pull things like the law, you better be perfect at your job because they can fire you for other reasons. You just said you can't fire me for this reason. Oh, they'll find one they can. Because I knew that, by the way, the person I was talking about the other time, they said their shift got moved over and they talked to the boss, basically said, look, I'll quit or whatever. Otherwise, give me my shift. Well, they didn't do everything they needed to do and got fired 3 weeks later anyway. Because they did something that was, justifiable to fire them, whatever. So you have to be careful and know that if you force them to keep you by pulling like, well, you can't fire me for this, they will fire you for something else. So you better be already, once that happened, if you're still on the job, be looking. Because your days are numbered probably. Bosses don't like having their arms twisted, okay? Even though you were right, they like that even less, that you were right. So yeah, be careful with that.
I come up here because I have a question. You were talking about the person that throws the first stone, and you use like adultery as the example. Not just for adultery, but any example. If you were to throw the first stone, and it was with someone you had loved, like your children or something like that, the person that's throwing the stone at a loved one, back then, because we don't do it now, I understand that, but how am I supposed to act having to do that to someone that did wrong and broke Torah at such an egregious event and be okay with that?
All right, so...
there's no example to go, I'm just curious.
No. Look, I don't think that we're understanding that law correctly or that ruling. The witnesses get to throw the first stone. They don't have to, okay? That's their honor or respect for them being the one. If somebody really did something that was considered evil in Israel and needed to be purged out, they would have the honor and the opportunity that they go first than everybody else, okay? And so that's part of the deal. Because certainly if you had a witness against someone you cared very much about, that'd be really tough to do and everything else. So I'm thinking it was probably more of, you get the first stone. It's okay if you don't, but you get the first stone than everybody else, okay?
The reason why I was asking that is because I was wondering if we were supposed to be like those, I believe it was Korach. I can't remember the one that Yahweh took, and he told Aaron not to even cry over them. And I was wondering if we were supposed to have that attitude.
No, that was when you had the sons of Aaron do the mistake. Yeah, they got killed, and he said no. Look, it's one thing, and it's kind of a lesson for you. Look, if you have a loved one who does something really, really against Torah, and has a continual problem, whatever it is, we're supposed to have a certain level of sadness, I suppose. But he said, look, don't cry over them. They deserved what they got. They earned what they got. It is what it is. It's hard, though. Okay, it's hard. But this is where, how do I want to explain this? I've tried to get this across to you guys a lot over the last couple of years. Stop thinking that parenting is the same once your child is an adult. Okay? Because they may do some really dumb stuff that gets them into all kinds of trouble, gets them arrested, gets them, they destroy their health on drugs or something, or they kill, I don't mean kill themselves literally, but they may do something that, ends up, because they're being dumb, ends up costing them their lives. And it's sad, but, there's a certain level of, but that was them, I'm not saying to be cold against everything. I'm just saying that it's just not the same as your love and responsibility for them as they grow into an adult, okay? Because you're going to watch some of your children self-destruct, and it's hard, but you're going to have to watch it. It is what it is. And so somehow you have to handle that emotional part of it.
So from Carlos Correa, in John 8:43, Yeshua refers to the devil as a murderer from the beginning. Could you explain in which context is he referred as a murderer?
Oh, yeah. Thank you for bringing that up because I forgot to mention it. Okay, so what was the situation that happened with Adam and Chava? Was death in their future expectancy before this interaction? No. So in getting them to trip, he brought death into their existence, which is making him a murderer, so to speak. Okay? Does that kind of make sense? And then the next person that kind of gets sort of devil influenced is Cain, who kills his brother. So death came out of the interaction.
From Mike Robillard, it seems that people who suffer from addiction don't even realize it. How can we be sure that we are not addicted to something that hinders our relationship with Yahweh?
I don't even know how to answer that nicely. And it's not against Mike. I think that's the biggest bunch of BS I've ever heard. If your life is functioning wonderfully, you don't have any problems. If you're addicted and it's a problem, your life is not functioning properly. And for you not to see it is because you're choosing not to see it. So I think that's garbage, okay? So don't say it seems that people who suffer from addiction don't even realize. No, they are purposely ignoring it. They're purposely blinded to it. They're purposely whatever, okay? Because if there's an area of your life that's not working, it's because something in that area is not working. It could be an addiction. So that's one of the first things I would look at, okay? I mean, if I was, 300, 400 pounds, and there are people out there like that, I'm not picking on you, I may wonder if I have an addiction to eating. It also could be a health issue and other things combined with it, but I may, because I watch people telling me, I've got this health issue and that's why I'm so heavy. But then I'm watching you eat a whole chocolate cake too, okay? So there's some other problems that are exacerbating the deal, if that makes any sense, right? So if your relationships are a problem, you may be addicted to being right, okay, and having to always be right or some other thing. You might be addicted in some other area that's messing you up with your finances or some area. If something's not working, there may be an addiction hurting that area. Does that make any sense to anybody? Okay? And so people could be like, oh, you picked on fat people, you picked on this, you picked on that. Look, whatever. Take it any which way you want. If it's you, own it and don't get upset. And if it's not you, why are you upset for other people? I'm really tired of that. Stop being upset for other people, okay? You can have enough to be upset with yourself. You don't want to be upset for other people. All right? And by the way, since I brought up the thing with weight, some people are like thinking I'm looking really thin and they want to know, am I okay? I just lost some weight. I am very healthy. I'm eating very well. I've just fixed my diet. I've studied me. By the way, Mike, if they study themselves, they'll know if they're addicted. Haven't I told you guys enough that you need to be hyper aware of you? All right? And so I've made adjustments, At my heaviest that you guys have seen me on the screen, I was 205. Now I'm 175. That's a lot of weight. I didn't lose all that recently. It's been over time, but Okay? And this is I'm almost at the weight I got married. Okay? But this is the lightest I've been in a very long time. But I'm not, not eating or anything. I'm not doing anything that's a diet. I'm not on a diet. I've changed my eating habits to something that's really what I like. And by the way, don't ask me necessarily what I do. It may not work for you. You may not like it. Okay, I don't know if you can drink 42 ounces of a shake as a meal in one sitting in a few minutes, but that's what I do. Okay, I mean, that may sound like a lot to some people. All right. Okay, and so it may not work for you what you do. That's what I do. And what I put in it may not work for you either. But I learned me. I studied me. Okay, I had a glucose monitor on my arm for a while there so I could see what everything I ate and what it did to me and all that other stuff. All right, I mean, all these things are about learning you. But some people are watching in Yom Kippur thinking, wow, Rabbi's looking a little weak and thin. And look, if I looked a little weak in Yom Kippur, it's only because I didn't sleep the night before for whatever reason. I made the mistake. My body clock's not your body clock. I tried to go to bed around 11 just to go to bed a little early. If I ever do that, I always wake up like 4 hours later, 5 hours later. So at 4 in the morning, I'm awake, and I only got about 4 hours sleep, and I didn't get back to sleep. So I was probably a little tired while fasting. And I also started fasting at lunch Wednesday into Thursday, so I fasted 30-something hours instead of 24 hours. So maybe it looked a little bit whatever to you at that point. But just understand, you know, again, you don't want to compare with me. For me to get a good night's sleep, I have to go to bed at 2. Then I'll sleep till 9 or 10 and get 7, 8 hours. I'll be great. I try to go to bed at 10 or 11 like some of you guys do. I'll be asleep for 4 hours and wake up. If I could even fall asleep. It took me half an hour to fall asleep. But I go to bed at 2, I fall right to sleep. I'm not you. You're not me. Learn you. Okay? Anyway, I just want to throw that out there because, you know, I clearly, if you look at my face and everything, oh my gosh, I was so... we walk in the lobby in our building over here, and there's usually a teaching playing, and it was one of the ones when I was probably about 200 pounds. I was like, who's that fat guy? I said, that's evil. It was playing on the screen. I had to see it every time I walked in and out of the building. Maisie's like, I'm sorry, she put it up there. It was like, what is evil part 1? I was like, oh my gosh. What was that? Oh, during the series, I started losing the weight. Look, and like you, I've been down and back and down and back because I kept trying to diet. I'm telling you, don't diet. Figure out an eating style that works for you. And the way you do that is you got to figure out what food works for you. Just like I had to figure out what sleeping schedule works for me. You got to figure out you know?
From Olivia Dirth, the Father is Yeshua's witness, and Yeshua is the Father's witness. They uphold or do their own Torah by being two witnesses. A matter is established from Deuteronomy 19:15.
Right. Didn't I quote Deuteronomy 19:15? Because it was in my notes. I did. That's what Yeshua's case that he was trying to make is that there's two witnesses. He's witnessing of himself, and the Father witnesses. But he's not just witnessing of himself. What he's saying is, if you know the Father, the things I do are a witness to that because I do what he says. You can see it in what I do. So it's not just somebody saying, well, I'm witnessing for myself. I mean, he's saying my claim should be easily seen as being true because if you know the Father, then you know what I'm doing lines up. Okay, but yes, he was claiming it fulfilled Deuteronomy 19:15.
Right, from Donna Stevens, this one's a two-parter. In John 8:3-7, the scribes and Pharisees speaking out allowed the alleged adultery, were in a sense exposing a lie that is themselves. Shouldn't they have repented for putting the woman in that situation and shaming her and lying about it through haughtiness, as we should if talking negative or lying about another because we want to be self-sovereign? Wouldn't an accounting be required?
All right, so, let's see how do I want to answer this. So first of all, we have no idea what they did when they walked away. The ones that did walk away. The ones that didn't walk away, we're not going to be doing that. Nobody repents of anything unless they think they're wrong. They didn't expect to have their lie exposed. They thought they were going to get him to say something that would have exposed him. Because then they could have said, well, she really didn't commit adultery, or, you're the wrong guy doing the decision, or, whatever. Okay? So he found a way to checkmate them that was very cool. I mean, really, really cool, I think. But yes, there certainly should be an accounting. But when you say, wouldn't an accounting be required? Only by the Father, not by us, not by anybody else. Okay? That's between them and the Father. All right, next.
All right, from Johann Yuki Z. About judgment, are all requirements like a high priest and done outside city gates required and applicable today before judgment is passed, like in stoning / the death penalty?
All right, I think I kind of answered that. Right, look, we don't do judgment, right? Okay, because we don't have these things. So we don't do things like stoning and death penalty. We live in the secular world where there are court systems and there's all kinds of public government put institutions, and they do that, all right? But we don't even think about these things as things to do now because we don't have the things needed to do it, okay? So no, we can't do any of these things. So when you say about judgment, are all requirements required and applicable today? No. They're required, yes. Are they applicable today? Yes. It's like if we were to do it, yes, they'd be applicable. We can't do it because we don't have them. But I think I said that during the teaching, but go ahead.
From Rachel Espino, it's another two-parter. The idea of hear plus receive equals value. I have issues with my children hearing but not receiving. How can we as parents teach our children how this practice is vital for how they value Elohim? And also in connection to my question, would you say that an integral part of receiving is action?
No, I think an integral part of receiving being that you are aware that it was received would be an action in response to it. But some things that are received don't have to have action on them right away. I can tell you something that you did needs to stop, but the situation that it would appear that you would normally do that in doesn't come up for a while. So there's no action immediately, okay, that would come up. I mean, if a kid went over to take a cookie out of the cookie jar, I said, don't do that again. And so it may be a while till there's more cookies in the cookie jar for that to happen. So there's no action until there's another opportunity. Okay, go back to the first part of this. I have issues with my children hearing and that thing. Okay, look, children can only hear and receive so much, and trying to give them rational understandings is really a matter of how old they are, okay? Think of us as literally like animals when we're really little. All we want to do is eat and sleep and that kind of thing. And we're just concerned with those fleshly sort of needs. Okay, we're not thinking, we're not making all kinds of wonderful concepts and coming up with understandings of relationships. We're just instinctually hungry, cold, want to be warm, want to be this, want to be that, or too hot, want to be cooled off, whatever. It's instinct stuff. Then as we get older, we become able to learn concepts. Like we hear the word no. Oh, I mean, I don't get to have everything I want when I want it. So we start learning concepts. So at a certain age, you can then, as parents, teach your children that when we don't, hear and receive, that value is not given. The person doesn't feel value, whether it's Elohim or whether it's you as a parent, okay? You can do that also as husbands and wives. You can explain, look, but children can't receive deeper things until they get to a certain age, okay? That doesn't mean they can't understand them intellectually. It's just hard for them to fully receive something at an age when they're really not capable of receiving it, all right? There's a growth evolution that happens as we develop. And so I don't know what age that is. I'm not going to say it's at a certain age and younger it can't happen because maybe somebody develops a little earlier. But you have to gauge your child as to when they can handle that. All right, next.
From Lise, is it possible for the devil to randomly creep into my dreams and show me my past habits and hang-ups, hence saying the devil made me do it out loud to where it woke me up?
I don't know that I'm not comfortable trying to think I know anything about dreams, okay? I'm not Joseph. Somebody thought I might be like Jeremiah. I'm certainly not Joseph. I'm not a dream and vision interpreter. I don't doubt that some of that stuff is possible. I don't see it anywhere in Scripture happening. But also, it's most of the time, dreams, and I can check with Janet, she can tell me if she agrees this from a psychology point of view. I think dreams are really a manifestation of what's going on in your subconscious. So if you're feeling like challenged by, the devil and your habits and all these other things, your subconscious may play out a scenario in a video for you in your dream world experience that has to do with things that are going on in you that your brain is trying to sort out. Is that about right? Okay, she agreed. I mean, that's the best understanding I have. Okay, is that most of the things you think are going on in your head are not necessarily outside source influenced, okay? It's really stuff in you trying to figure it and sort itself out. All right, next.
All right, another one from Olivia. Rabbi, you were asking us to ask ourselves if there are things that control you. It can be good or bad. Maybe think of emotions, which makes us lie, twist, attack like the devil. Does this work?
Yes. And we'll probably talk a little bit more about that when we talk about things in the cognitive function class as well as in the level up class. And I'm really struggling to put together something that will only take 5 hours for the cognitive functions and leave you guys time to talk and ask questions. So it's going to be very succinct and leave you a lot of questions to ask. You guys, I'm hoping to inspire you to go out there and really dig into it yourselves. But man, we could probably go 12, 15 hours on what I've got. But go ahead.
Another one from Olivia in John 8:59. They picked up stones to stone Yeshua because they believe he is breaking Leviticus 24:16.
Okay, so that's the one that says, he who blasphemes the name of Yahweh shall certainly be stoned. I think they were just pissed off. I mean, it could be. I think they were just mad. They were just angry. They wanted to just stone him because they just lost it. They just lost it. I mean, he just shamed them to the deepest whatever, and they just wanted to done with him. All right? So, but yeah, it could have been. The answer to Olivia, yes, Olivia, it's possible. Could have been because they thought he was breaking Leviticus 24:16. It doesn't say anywhere except that he triggered them to the point where they just picked up rocks already. They had enough. Okay? They had enough. I mean, he was really strong with them in a very, very embarrassing, shaming sort of way in front of everybody. Of course, they brought it. By the way, can I just say something to everybody? Well, of course I can. I have the mic. Okay. And none of you are going to make me stop, so, you know. Please, okay, please listen to this, because some of you do this and you need to hear this. You are not, I don't know how do I want to say that? Please don't, and I'm not going to say you're not allowed to, you just don't do this, okay? Don't get angry at something done in public that you triggered, but you don't like the way the person did the response in public. Well, you embarrassed me in public, but you set it up, right? They could basically be mad at Yeshua. You embarrassed us, but you brought this on yourselves. Now, we see that when other people do it. You don't see it when it's you, though. You got to always ask the question, okay, I didn't like that, but did I cause that? Did I bring that up? Because it didn't happen in a vacuum. It didn't just happen necessarily. It may be that you did something that then caused it to be next. Okay, that doesn't maybe mean that the person could have avoided doing it, didn't have to respond, but they do. Because I've already told all of our people that I can, if you do it in public, I'm going to address it in public. If you're on the live stream and you do something that needs to be, listen, you put it in the live stream, you did it in public, it's addressed in public. You didn't want it to be in public, it shouldn't have been in public. Okay? All right? You know, that's kind of logical and simple. But I know that some people have this problem. Husbands and wives have this problem. Well, you know, he did what I said, but what did you do first? If you didn't do that first, maybe that wouldn't have happened in public or whatever it is. Okay? Anyway, next.
From Stephen Abel. Can murderer from the beginning also be referring to murdering Yeshua as he was slain from the foundation of the world and it was
No. Okay? Yeshua gave that voluntarily. He wasn't murdered. Okay? I know that he was murdered by the Romans, but he gave his life. He didn't have to be killed. He could have done things and not been killed, right? So no, he gave himself. All right, next.
And this is the last one we've got from Olivia. Yeshua saying my word in verse 51 and 52, John 8, he is telling them it's his, he is author, which leads to him saying he's I am. So he answers their question, who he is, over and over in different ways in chapter 8.
I would agree.